Primero, quiero, como para dar cierre a este congreso, quiero agradecerles a todos por haber estado acá. Como Federico creo que dijo el otro día, este congreso es la gente que viene. Nosotros solamente armamos un marco, damos un lugar y los invitamos a venir. Acá si no viene nadie, somos solamente la gente de Fundación Bases, Roberto Daña, Coberton y se terminó, así que el resto lo hacen ustedes. Así que, bueno, les quería agradecer por haber estado. Esperemos estar dentro de 2 años, tal vez menos, de nuevo acá o en otro lugar, compartiendo 3 días de debate, de discusiones. Esto es muy divertido para mí. Yo vengo acá y me encuentro gente que está a la derecha mía y me peleo y cosas así. Así que está bueno. Para cerrar, ya es un clásico que yo cierro, nunca abro, pero esta vez me tocó abrir y cerrar, así que a Fede le voy a cobrar el doble por este servicio. Los quiero dejar con Stephen Hicks, que es el director de la cátedra de filosofía del Rockford College. Es graduado y máster en la Universidad de Guelph y PhD en la Universidad de Indiana. Además es el director del Centro de Estudios para la Ética y el Emprendedorismo del mismo Rockford College y es profesor invitado de otras universidades, en particular de la Universidad de Loyola, en cursos de ética de negocios. Además tiene su propio blog en stephenhicks.org, ahí tiene todo, tiene material que publica, sus libros, el nuevo DVD de Nietzsche y los nazis, que salió hace un par de años. Así que bueno, los voy a dejar con el profesor Hicks, que va a hacer la conferencia de cierre, Austrians, Objectivists and the Unrequited Law of Philosophy for Economics.
Thank you, Martin.
Do you want to mic?
I'll project.
Okay.
Don't want to move around. It really is a pleasure for me to be here. It's my first ever trip to Argentina. I'm 3 days now, mostly at this conference. And one thing that's very impressive to me personally is I am a great admirer of free markets and liberal society. But where I live in the United States and where I work in the academic world, I'm a member of a very small minority of people who are admirers of those things. So I come to Argentina, and so far everyone I have met. What a wonderful country. But I might be generalizing a little bit here. I'm a philosopher by profession. I do a lot of philosophy of economics. I do a lot of business ethics. And so what that means is that I work at the intersection of philosophy and economics a lot. And if I then narrow things down a little bit, I am a great admirer of several traditions in economics, but most dominantly the Austrian tradition in economics. And on the philosophy side of things, the Objectivist tradition in philosophy, which is a modernization in many respects of the long-standing Aristotelian tradition in philosophy. Thinking of this from my work in political economy and intersecting that with philosophy, I tried to narrow down a sense for where I'm coming from, people from whom I have learned the most in all of the fields of philosophy, economics, political economy, and so forth. And so what I have here is 9 people. These are my intellectual heroes, geniuses, all of them brilliant. And what is striking about the philosophers on the list is that all of them were also deeply engaged with issues of political economy. And one of the things that strikes me about all of the economists on the list, part of what made them brilliant economists is they found themselves working backward to the philosophical issues and integrating those. So what we have is a very happy meeting here. Now, there are lots of issues on the table here when you start talking about broad fields like philosophy, economics, and so forth. This conference, we've had any number of papers focusing on the methodological issues as one of the very rich areas where philosophers have value to add to the economists and vice versa. But in my talk today, I'm going to focus on the value issues in economics and hopefully talk about what the value added can be from a philosophical approach to values and how do we solve, or at least hope to solve and approach some of the thorny issues in the philosophy of economics that are about the nature of value. Now, all of these people are, broadly speaking, liberal, in their outlook. We mean by liberal that the word should be. So that's a broad cognitive similarity. But I was also noticing when I focused on some of the ones from whom I learned a great deal, there's a striking set of biological, sort of biographical similarities between several of them, involving their doing their work in their political, economic context right of their political time. So we take, for example, Rand. Of course, Rand grew up in Russia, was born in 1905 in St. Petersburg, got her university degree there, lived through the Russian Revolution and the brutal aftermath and the increasing degradation of society. And one of the striking things is that she resolved as a young woman to get out of Russia, then the Soviet Union, right, and never go back, and then ended up living her life in exile. It was a happy exile because she ended up in the United States, which she greatly admired. But it is also striking if you consider Mises, Hayek, and Popper, right, all of them Austrian, who ended up not being able to live in their intellectually rich years in their native country, part pursuing other opportunities, but also just not wanting to be in Austria after the Nazis had taken over there. And then doing some reading in preparation for this conference, I also noticed that Alberti, strikingly, given the tumultuous atmosphere of 19th century Argentine politics, ended up living much of his life right in exile in Uruguay and France, I understand. This is a striking thing, and one thing that this, for me, is to give it a little consolation, because as despairing and as depressing as it sometimes can be, to listen to the news, to read the newspapers, to realize that we're in a small minority in our particular views. At least we don't have to flee the country in fear of our lives in order to be able to say and speak and articulate the views that we do. But nonetheless, I think we do live in challenging times politically and economically. Obviously, in the United States, for many years, the most prosperous nation in the world. In many cases, the freest nation of the world is suffering severe setbacks, is undergoing depression, or at least a recession. It's not clear how long this is going to last. There are spillover effects all over the world, and it's a complicated mess. And one of the things that's very frustrating about it is that my market understanding, or our shared Austrian objectivist understanding of what led us into the crisis, is not widely shared by very many people in the intellectual world or in the public. Well, little bits and pieces here and there, yes. So what I would like to do is start by asking, if we take the current political, economic climate, I'm going to speak primarily from the United States perspective, it's the one that I know the most, but many of these things are parallel in the European problems and in the Central and Latin American countries as well. We have a mess. It's a complicated mess, and there are any number of important concepts that we think students and analysts and other thinkers about the society need to work out, that we have a set of tools, intellectual methodologies that will help us understand that. So when, for example, I'm teaching and I'm talking about the political economy side of the equation, here are the concepts that we think are important and fundamental for students and other thinkers to grasp and make part of their thinking vocabulary and their understanding of the world. If we switch over from the political economy side to the ethics or the value side of the equation, evaluative concepts, here's an array of concepts that are important for students to master and other thinkers to master and make part of their working vocabulary. But then the question is, how do we put all of this together? We have philosophers working on some of the value concepts, the economists working on some of the economic issues, the political scientists working on them. How do we put all of this together in a synthetic view? And my best effort at doing so is the handout that is a largest spread flow chart. What I want to do for starters is show, in my thinking, how we can put the insights from political economy together with the insights from philosophy to have an overall understanding of why the political economy is the way that it is. There's a bit of a legend here, the way I see it. We have four types of agents, right? Operative, or one category I call the producers, put them in green. Another category I call the altruists or the welfarists, put them in yellow. We have any number of predatory people functioning, and I put them in what that color is, but the top right cell there. And then government bureaucrats increasingly are an important part of the story as well, so put those in a kind of boring brown-gray kind of color. And then the light blue will be just labels that political economists and philosophers assign to various parts of the dynamic. So if we ask, where do things begin? Where does the process of value creation begin? Where do economies begin? I would say the economies begin with productive people. They have an idea, they act on the basis of that idea, they transform resources to make something. They earn money, if it's a sophisticated monetary economy, by engaging in work and trading, right, with other people. So that's a good place to start. What this then means is if they're going to add value to the world, they're creating value along any number of dimensions, either increasing more things or producing things of higher quality, finding ways to be more efficient and lower costs, various sorts of innovative activities and so forth. As a result of this, when we get into complex divisions of labors, people who own businesses, people who work for them, customers who trade with them, all of them are benefiting from various kinds of transactions. It's a win-win-win economy that is developing. In any economy at any given time, there are any number of people who, for whatever reason, are not able to make a living. They're handicapped, have had bad luck. But in an economy such as this, there's an increasing amount of prosperity, and so there's surplus wealth that is generated for people who are not able to make it, and so there's an increase in the amount of philanthropy, and so that increases, and so that then means in the poor and the nonprofit sector as well, there's also a win. And put all of that together, that's what we call the free market, and if you're an advocate of free market societies or liberal societies more broadly speaking, this is what you would like to see front and center, fundamental, recognized, encouraged, and people given credit for being able to do so. However, people who are committed to production and trade are not the only operative agents in any given political economy. Another type is a strong form of altruism. Altruists who then argue that morally speaking, people should in their lives primarily be engaged not in producing wealth, but rather in giving wealth away or redistributing, in some cases, other people's wealth. And so rather than philanthropy being something that is a secondary byproduct of productive activities, here we'll have an emphasis on charity as a duty, as a primary obligation, putting the needs of poor people ahead of one's own fundamentally, and that should be one's central ethical focus in life. Now, as a result of this, to the extent people believe that, there is an increase, right, in the amount of charity that goes on in a society, and that certainly is going to be beneficial to the poor and the nonprofit sector as well.